Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dreams Unlimited Travel Podcast. My name is John Magi, and I will be your host. And this week, we're going to talk to you and tell you all about our Adventures by Disney China trip that we just took last month. I'm joined at the table by Client Services Manager for Dreams Unlimited Travel. That's the wrong person. Client Services Manager for Dreams Unlimited Travel, Kevin Close.
Hi, everyone.
Agent and Welcome Center Manager for Dreams Unlimited Travel, Teresa Eccles.
Hello.
That's the right person. And back in our production facility, we have our producer, Craig Williams.
To be fair, we normally go counterclockwise.
We do usually go the other way. I threw you for a loop.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
We point the finger of blame everywhere else. That's okay. Again, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. Thank you guys for being here. We're going to tell you about our Adventures by Disney China trip. Kevin and I just got back from it, so it's kind of nice to be able to do something so close to travel, a little bit fresh in our minds, not something we usually do. But before we get started, there's a couple of things I want to talk about that are not related to this particular podcast. Been getting some questions about where's Tracy. People are concerned that perhaps Tracy's not feeling well. I assure you that Tracy is doing okay. The last I talked to her, her health was fine. The reason why she hasn't been on the last couple of shows is because of something that's going on with me personally. My schedule's been a little weird, and I've had to cancel a big recording that we had scheduled. We had scheduled a weekend where we were going to record a bunch of shows. Because of that, we don't have those shows ready. So we're trying to get these shows in as we can to make sure that we still have a weekly show for everybody.
Your health is fine also.
My health is fine as well. It's a family issue that we're dealing with. So perhaps going forward, the rest of this year, there might be shows. There might not be a show, a Dreams Unlimited Travel podcast. That's possible. Or, we may have other shows sort of thrown in just so to make sure that we have ones that go up. But let you know, Tracy is fine. She will be back. It's just has to be a scheduling issue. The next thing I want to say is, why is Teresa here?
I want to know that too.
She did not go on our trip. Teresa needed something from me, so I'm kind of holding her hostage.
And Teresa has mints.
Yeah, she has mints. Curiously strong
Curious
mints.
strong mints.
So because I had to give her something for work-wise, I said, stay and do the show with us. So thank you for joining us, Teresa.
Sure.
And hopefully, you're always asking me how our trip goes and how our trip went, and do you want details? And I tell you to watch the show,
Well,
and you tell me I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that. So I get firsthand. So I can
hear
harass
firsthand.
you and ask you all the questions I want to
Exactly.
ask. Awesome.
Great. All right. So that's it for my little pieces of information I wanted to share with you for folks who are concerned about that. So last week, our last show, we talked about the Tokyo Disneyland portion of our trip. That was the sort of pre-Adventures by Disney add-on that we did. We talked about going to Tokyo Disneyland, Tokyo Disney Sea, and our experience there. This is going to actually be from the point at which our Adventures by Disney starts. So we all went to the airport. We flew to, those of us in Japan all flew together. Pretty much to Hong Kong. Got to Hong Kong and started our Adventures by Disney trip.
Before you do that, I just want to mention something about our last show. I've been talking to people who have been on our trip, and all of us, we got back on October 25th. So we've been back 2 weeks. And everybody is still talking about the same thing, that the getting over this jet lag has been very difficult. Our sleep schedules are very, very messed up. People are still waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning and being wide awake. It was very hard. And I think a lot of what colored our reaction to Japan last week was exhaustion. So I think I went back and watched the show and I thought, I think we were just exhausted. I think we walked around as zombies.
I didn't watch last week's show.
We watched it back, and I could see we came across as fairly negative. And while we didn't, we talked about how it was a different experience than what we expected.
We weren't effusively excited about it, but it comes across that we were negative, and I didn't mean it to be that. I think it was exhaustion.
Okay.
So.
But I know y'all had a good time.
We did. We had a good time.
I was following you on Twitter and stuff.
Yeah, we had a great time. And I also want to point out, too, again, folks, please remember, this is our experience. This is our opinion. You might go and have a different opinion. You might think we're silly. You might watch a different show who's been there and they say, oh, it's the best thing ever. Just our opinion. and we're just going to tell
That's
you
all
what
you
we
got,
think.
though,
That's
right?
it.
Your opinion, and
That's all we got. Let's talk a little bit about this adventure and the fact that this Adventures by Disney China trip is different than the regular Adventures by Disney China trip. Kevin and I worked with the folks at Adventures by Disney to put together this special trip. But before we talk about this trip, let's talk about what the usual trip is.
The usual trip to China has more China in it than ours did. Ours was very Disney-centric, but the people that wanted to travel with us were Disney fans, and they were looking to bucket list the Asian parks. So we built a trip for those folks to kind of get to do
parks.
that. The China trip, it's about the same length, but it's much more China intensive. There's more internal flights than there are in ours, where you fly in and out of places. Like, for instance, you fly in and out of Xi'an. Please don't judge my Chinese. You get to fly in to see the pandas, and you fly out.
One of the things about the regular trip is you don't stay in the Disney parks or in Disney resorts. You stay sort of in the downtown areas, and then they build in a day or maybe even just an afternoon to go into these parks.
And I think it's Hong Kong that's completely missing, or Shanghai, I forget, I apologize. One of the parks is missing. We decided that, again, this was built for Disney fans, that we stayed at Disneyland, or that the Disney parks. We stayed in the Disneyland Hotel in Hong Kong and Shanghai. So it was more about having our folks be able to walk out the back door and go to the park, as opposed to being able to walk out of the hotel and
go to China.
So
if someone were to book this now, it would be the regular.
Correct.
Well, ABD took our trip and sold it to other people this year. So they might do the same thing last year. I think they saw some value in what we created, John and I, and they did allow other people to book that.
So far, as of right now, Adventures by Disney does not have this specific trip available to sell. They did it. They offered to annual pass holders at one point. So it was available before, but now it's no longer available. So you'd have to book the other trip. The good news about the other trip is you could add the Disney components to it, but you kind of have to do much of that on your own, and you might be missing some of the other stuff that people do.
Right.
One of the things that interesting is we had someone on this trip who had been on the other trip. And you thought, well, why are you coming back to China? And he said specifically because we really made it Disney-centric. We're talking about 4 days in Hong Kong, 4 days in Shanghai. Really let somebody go into those parks and enjoy them.
And if you want to do an ABD trip to China, just like any ABD trip to another country, you want to do it in Disney's bubble, but not necessarily all Disney. If you want to see the actual country and do
This
the
was
things.
this trip was not aimed at the cultural aspect of China.
Right.
This trip, I'll say it one more time, this trip was designed for the Disney fan. This was about Disney, and this was about Disney in China.
And our group loved it.
Yeah.
Our group had great. As a matter of fact, we heard over and over again this was the perfect trip for them.
Nice.
Because this is what they wanted to do and see.
We had a lot of Disney and a little bit of China.
Exactly. Before we get into the actual trip and the days by day of the trip, let's talk a little bit about some of the logistics of this trip. Not having been to China before, not having been to Asia before, we had some stumbling blocks. One of which was getting the visa. You had to get a visa to go to China. And there was a learning curve involved. For example, we didn't realize that even though we were starting in Hong Kong, that portion is not considered under the Chinese visa. So our visa actually started when we got to Beijing. And it was quite a process. I mean, it was.
Getting your Chinese visa is an exercise in patience.
Really?
You have to send a picture, like a passport picture, but it can't be a passport picture. And it has to be in front of a totally white wall. And there cannot be any shadows behind you. And you have to make a neutral face without your glasses or jewelry. So you look unhappy to begin with. We took one, and we sent it in, and they sent mine back because there were too many shadows, and the wall wasn't white enough. I'm not making this up, I swear. So then we took another one in front of a white door, and we sent it in, and they sent it back. It still wasn't white enough. So John took some program, what was it?
Took Photoshop.
And then took and painted the background. So it was me standing in front of this painted white backdrop, which made it look like a really fake photo. And they wrote back and they said that the picture that I took has to be taken within 90 days
Travel. I guess.
of traveling. And it looked too much like my passport photo. So it looks like I copied my passport photo. Now, I took
my.
this as a compliment because my passport photo was 6 years old.
The other thing
Right,
too is,
there you go.
the other thing too is, don't you want your photos to look alike?
Right.
I mean, you know,
So
if you
then-
look completely
Right.
different,
I had to
you
go
think
change
to
my
raise
clothes,
a flag.
so I wasn't wearing a black shirt in my visa photo. It was...
Did you have the same trouble, or it was just
We had trouble with the background, and we fixed the background, but I didn't have that. Your picture looks the same because apparently I look much older.
yeah? You have aged.
And then so it just so
Yeah,
happened that we were doing this, and the visa office that we were dealing with was in Houston
And the hurricane had hit.
during the hurricane.
no,
So
okay.
it was. This was
A little bit more.
It was. You had to be
Sounds
patient.
stressful.
It was stressful.
And I mean, we're talking about, you know, we filled out all these forms, and some of the things on the forms weren't right.
And
Was there
other-
money involved with the visa?
Yeah, we
and
got
all
to pay
that?
for it to be done.
And there were other people in our group. One of the things they ask you is who is inviting you to China. So some of us said ABD, Adventures by Disney.
Right.
And other people on our trip had their forms refused because the hotel was the invitee, the first hotel you stayed
And
at.
again, not Hong Kong, Beijing.
Right,
So we
because
all
that-
went, but we're going to Hong Kong. It was bizarre.
It was not standard, and it was
You had to write a little letter explaining what your business was
In China?
and what you do for a living and what you were doing in China. And one of our guests was refused because she worked for a church.
Oh, she's on a missionary trip.
That's what they thought, and she wasn't.
She's not.
I know, but that's what they're thinking.
Right.
So I mean, they had to get like other people involved.
So that was part of the logistics of it. The other one was the money. We went, as we usually do, when we get some cash from our bank
Mm-hmm.
in the currency of the location where we're going. So
We always tell our guests to get off the plane with some of the local currency.
Yes.
Because credit cards are taken most everywhere, but if you want a bottle of water
You don't know.
or you
right.
want to, tip someone, you got to have a little bit of the money in your pocket.
So we went to the bank, and because we went to Tokyo first, we had Japanese yen. Hong Kong uses a different currency. We had Hong Kong dollars, and we had Chinese yuan. And we got $500 worth of each.
I said to the guy in the bank, I want to spend $500 US. Get me $500 US worth of each
Right.
three money. So it should be about $1,500. Well, we had a stack of money.
Right.
Oh, really?
We got
Put
to
in
the
your
car,
wallet.
and there was a stack like this thick, and we're like, oh my God, I feel like a soprano. It's like, what is going on here?
So
wore-
who has the pretty money? That's what I want to know. Which
I wore
one?
my Shanghai Disney hat today.
We tried to spend as much as we could. Let me just say real close. We tried to spend as much as we could of the money, and then what we didn't spend, we did change to the next place we were
Yeah,
going.
yeah, that makes
We
sense.
don't recommend doing that because you kind of lose out on
You're
the exchange
losing.
rate, but we just thought it was easier to get done like that.
I bought my hat. I decided to wear my hat today from Shanghai Disney Hotel. And I took the tag off it. It was 135 Chinese
Whatever.
yuan.
You on?
So I spent a lot of time saying to people, how much is that really?
How many is that?
Right. What does that really cost in my world? Wow.
And we did okay when it came to the paper money. The paper money was fine, but then they give you change, and like the change has a square cut out of it.
And
Right.
one,
It's like
Regular edges.
Subway tokens. And
one was about the size of a 50-cent piece, and it was all scalloped around the edges. It looked like a Lorna Doone.
oh, pretty.
It was beautiful, but a lot of times you would just hold your hand out and just
Yeah.
take whatever you want.
So you can't feasibly book a flight to China and just go to China on a whim. You have to have
no.
all this.
No, you have to. If you go to China, you need a visa.
You need
for
a
sure.
visa.
One other thing about the money was once we got to Shanghai Disneyland, they didn't take American Express. So we were using American Express earlier. Maybe actually it might have started in Beijing. It was all of a sudden they didn't take American Express, which, you would think, let me travel with this one card.
Right.
So we had to make sure we had a MasterCard with us or a Visa
Have a
with us.
backup. Yeah.
So
I don't want to make this sound like this was a huge stumbling block, but we all went through it. It
But
was,
we-
we would be shopping in a group, and somebody would say, they didn't want to look stupid, and you'd hear, "How much is that really?"
Right.
Because it would be like, "Oh, it's $30. No, it's $3,000.
$3,000,
No, it's
yeah.
$300. Oh, I don't think you're even right. I think it's $12." And it would be like,
Right.
I think it's interesting to point out the things that we experience because I think we're experienced travelers. We go a lot of places. And
I'm
the
going to
things
say that the airports in China were different. Here we have Trusted Traveler, TSA PreCheck. We paid to do that. And there you have to take every electronic out of your bag and open it. And it's much more complicated.
Not only every electronic, they didn't like umbrellas. You took umbrellas out.
Like umbrellas?
You like
you
umbrellas?
can't have an umbrella in your carry-on or in your tote bag. It has to be out in the bucket. They have to be able to open it and see it.
Cameras had to be out. And one of the things that really caused them a fit was if you had a charger for your phone, like an external battery charger, that really drove them nuts.
Several of them were confiscated. Now, we had heard going through that you shouldn't bring your laptop, you shouldn't bring this, you shouldn't bring that. They could confiscate it. We ran into none of that.
None of that at all.
Nobody confiscated anything. A couple of people lost their
Chargers.
their charger. That one seemed to be the big one. And I don't know why.
Interesting.
One of the reasons was because it had to sort of say something on it that identified it as a charging unit.
Oh, and some of them don't.
Because they didn't know if it was perhaps something bad that shouldn't go on a plane, and some of them didn't say that. But
Umbrellas were such a hassle. We bought umbrellas in Tokyo.
Probably.
Yeah, Tokyo, because it had been raining that day. We finally gave our umbrellas away. It was like, I would just rather be wet.
Wow.
Because we had a couple of internal flights that we had to do. Umbrellas were a big thing.
We're going to get to airports too as we transition because there's other airport issues as well. So let's get started. Let's sort of dive into it again. We are starting at the point at which we get off the plane. Adventures by Disney meets us with their sign. We get in our cars and are driven away. What was nice about this was because we were with a group, it was kind of nice to be with a whole bunch of people together rather than getting off a plane by yourself.
And as we said, we came, a whole bunch of us came on the same flight from Tokyo. So we all arrived at exactly the same time.
That's
there were
nice.
2 vans of us going to the Hong Kong Disneyland Hotel.
So we arrive at the Hong Kong Disneyland Hotel. We've got a couple pictures of that. Beautiful hotel. Basically the Grand Floridian.
Ah, okay.
This is basically the Grand Floridian. This is, the outside's almost identical to it. You're going too far. The lobby is very similar, much smaller than the Grand Floridian, sort of a third of the size, but still got big ceilings. It's got the elevator that you can see. One of the interesting things is the hotel is actually built on the water. So where you think in the Grand Floridian, you're going to look and see across the lagoon to the Magic Kingdom, it's the water, it's the ocean, it's whatever that bay is. I forget what it was called. So I thought that was unusual. That it's the same resort, but it's kind of different and kind of weird.
The Bay of Hong Kong.
The Bay of Hong Kong.
I don't know if that's
You
true.
just,
Please,
that
I
is
just
the
made that
Bay
up.
of Hong Kong.
So again, our first night there, our first time there is actually our welcome reception with the folks from Adventures by Disney.
We had Daisy and Christian as tour guides.
And, typical, where you're from, who's doing what you're looking forward to, that sort of stuff with the Adventures by Disney guides. And then we had our dinner. And here's the menu for our dinner. And Craig's got some pictures for you. This is, again, sort of the continuation of the weird food.
That was the best part of the pictures of the food that you had.
We started with smoked salmon with cream cheese, chicken pumpkin terrine, and lime honey dressing. The smoked salmon and cream cheese was delicious. The pumpkin terrine, the chicken and pumpkin terrine, it was different.
Which one was that?
Go back to the other picture.
It's
Here's
kind
the
of
salmon.
hiding
salmon.
behind it. It was chicken and pumpkin pressed. What would I describe it
Oh,
as?
the pumpkin's in that.
Yes.
The
Okay.
pumpkin and the chicken were mixed together in a terrine, so it was kind of like slicing putty that tasted like chicken and pumpkin. Pumpkin was a big
Okay.
deal.
I said, we have
Pate or
to
something
lay the groundwork. Pumpkin was everywhere.
Was it because of the season?
Is because of the
Okay.
holiday. But they also understood too that it also was big in the Chinese culture.
Right.
Okay,
Pumpkins are
all
part of their diet.
We sat in the lobby and had
I like pumpkin.
we had dinner in the lobby one night. They had like a bar snacky thing, and I got a bratwurst sandwich
Okay, sounds good.
with mustard and sauerkraut.
Sounds good.
And that's what I thought. And it came out on pumpernickel bread
Okay.
with a 1.5 or 2 inch layer of pumpkin pie filling on it.
Whew.
It was gross.
And it was never really, they kind of surprised you with it.
Right. Pumpkin wasn't like, it was just slid in there. So then we went on to sort of a soup course.
Seafood chowder and a double boiled chicken soup with bean curd. The seafood chowder was a huge hit. The chicken soup was okay.
Okay.
Do we have more?
Yeah.
I moved on to sushi.
The next one is slow cooked chicken roulade with truffle crust, spinach and cheese timbale with sauce chardonnay, steamed grouper fillets with cordyceps flour.
I cook with that all the time.
You do, really.
I get the big one at Sam's.
Oh gosh, that scared me.
I get the big cordyceps flour
Do you?
at Sam's. Yeah.
Okay.
There's nothing in that cup that just fell.
No,
there.
it was
No,
empty.
it was
All
empty.
right, good.
Just a cup.
Spilled everywhere.
Some of this was good. Some of it wasn't so much. But it was a nice assortment.
Beautiful presentation on
Yeah,
everything
beautiful
so far.
presentation.
It was beautiful. Everything was
Right.
really well done.
Really, really well done presentation.
Oh, this one come with a pin.
Did. You got to be careful eating your dessert.
Don't eat the
'cause
pin.
This was mango chocolate mousse cake with strawberry coulis, pumpkin and almond milk, and coffee pudding.
Everything bad is on this plate. They've collected all the bad things. They put it on one plate and put it in front
It's
of
so
John.
pretty. Okay, that one little multi-layered thing that looks like cake. It also looks gelatinous.
They're slices of Jello adhered together. Oh my
Really
god!
was. It looked like cake when it came out. When you touched it, it was
It looks like cake,
Jell-O.
but I see a shine on it, so I know it's not.
So none of this appealed to me,
pumpkin
but
with almond milk and coffee.
That's the little Mickey head thing.
Yeah. The
I
best
don't-
part was the pin.
Where's the chocolate on here? There's no chocolate on there.
wrapped around the. I think Mickey's made of chocolate and it's wrapped around the base. So very nice. You know, our first night is nice and everybody's high and we're hugging and blah blah blah.
We were not high.
So we go on
I
to.
was like,
No, we hugged.
No, you
Wow.
said everybody was high.
Oh, I didn't say everybody's high. Here's everybody's
say
high.
you did it. Everybody, I'm thinking, whoa, what else did you get
None of
rid
us were
sir?
high.
Everybody's
Some of them were
high.
drinking.
The food would have tasted. Never mind. Better.
I would accepted that Jello thing. So day 2 starts. Our first day, we're going to go into Hong Kong Disneyland. We're going to have a great day. We start with breakfast.
Oh, good.
Breakfast is in the hotel. It's included every morning. Similar sort of issues that we had in Tokyo, where there's a Japanese section, a Chinese section, specifically for Chinese visitors, which was unusual food.
Oh wait, I didn't hear about this.
Oh, Tokyo was.
There was this separate
Breakfast
section
had a Western section and a Japanese section.
of food.
Food.
Okay.
Not like it wasn't like
It wasn't segregated.
down.
Okay.
You didn't have to sit.
But when
in
he
those
said it, I
sections.
thought, whoa, wait a minute.
That would have been
If
for
you've
a
been
good.
on the Disney Dream or the Disney Fantasy, the breakfast restaurant, the buffet in Hong Kong, what is the restaurant downstairs? It's the Secret Garden, the Enchanted Garden.
Enchanted Garden.
The Enchanted Garden. That's what the restaurant reminded me of when you
Okay.
walked into that. It had that kind of feel to
Okay.
it. Now, I'm going to start. They explained to us that at breakfast, that at this point, we were in a typhoon.
Well, I was gonna say, let me get to that because I think we were sort of.
I think we're already there.
All right, well, let's do the breakfast stuff first, and then we'll talk about that next. So let's flip through some of these pictures, and we'll very well. Ursula's under the sea buffet, very nice.
Ooh,
Again,
steamed dumplings.
steaming dumplings,
Okay, I like
so-
steamed dumplings.
again, things you don't really recognize, but
Lots of pink.
right. And then you move on, and they've got sort of the Western food of it. We did well at this buffet. There was an omelet station. Excuse me. There was a person making fresh eggs.
It's like bacon.
The problem
Bacon.
with the omelet section was there was one woman making omelets, so there were like 40 people in line,
Yeah.
and she was not fast. She was
They were good though, I'm sure.
but by the time you got there, yes.
Okay.
And the other problem they had was their scrambled eggs. They would cook them until they were slightly cooked, and then they would add heavy cream to them.
They got runny.
So when you put them on your plate, they didn't clump like eggs. They kind of looked like egg soup on your plate.
That's what the eggs in Barcelona looked like when we were there.
It was very European.
Very
thing.
runny, yeah.
And there was a bunch of us that are not big on runny eggs.
Mm-hmm.
So we found on the buffet, we found egg salad, like Americanized egg salad.
Oh,
so
my.
for breakfast every morning in Hong Kong, there was a little group of us who had egg salad as our breakfast choice.
Interesting.
Now,
On
that was-
toast points?
That was Tokyo was the egg salad, but Hong Kong was a little bit easier to have breakfast there. And we did okay, and we were doing fine. And then our guides came up to us and said, pulled Kevin and I aside and said, "We have a problem." I'm like, oh no. We love to hear that on our first full
Right.
day. We have a problem. And show the picture. This was our problem.
Tropical cyclone signal number 8 is in force.
Now, being from Florida, we're used to hurricanes.
Yeah.
And we're used to hurricanes 1 through 5. And they said we have a tropical cyclone 8 approaching. And we thought, oh, we're all going to die.
Right? This is it.
This is it. This is the big one. It turns out tropical cyclones are rated by their proximity to where you are. So an 8 meant that it was close enough to cause issues. So they closed the park.
Okay.
And you want to talk a little bit about really why they closed the park?
We had no bad weather. It was beautiful. There were kids in the pool. And what happened is they explained that in Hong Kong, almost everybody travels by ferry to get to
okay.
work.
Right.
It's a main mode of transportation. And while we were in a very non-windy, non-rainy area, apparently the rest of Hong Kong was under a deluge. It was really, really strong.
So this was for everybody.
Right.
in the
And they
area.
explained to us that the park would not close. There's signal 1, signal 3, and signal 8. I don't understand what all that is or why that is. But once it got to 8, they would close the park. And then they explained to us that if it stayed signal 8 until 1 p.m., they would just close the park for the whole day. They would not ever try and reopen that day.
There was a possibility that if it went down to a 3, then they'd have 3 hours to open the park, and it might be open that night. And it's funny because we did not notice anything. I mean, from Florida, it seemed like a cloudy,
nice day.
drizzly day. It was a nice day, actually, because it was breezy and cool. So we had talked about on the last show the fact that we were very, very jet lagged and very, very tired. This became sort of a forced rest day for many of us.
Okay.
You kind of hung out at the resort and read and did some things, but I decided to go and look because I figured they're lying to me. I know that park's open,
So you went to the park.
so I went to the park anyway. The hotel has a bus to the park, but it also has a walking path. We'll get into that. It says it's walking distance. It was far, but we were going to do some resort hopping and look at the other resorts. And we actually decided to take the bus to the theme park and get some shots of the park without anybody else there. So, beautiful, beautiful entrance. And again, this is the sky. This is tropical cyclone. This is why the park has been closed. So I went and took some pictures and wandered around a bit. Got some more there, Craig? Oh, we have a video. This is their fountain. That's sort of outside in the esplanade of the, before you get to the actual ticket booth. So there's a little video of what the fountain's doing. I thought this was really,
That's
really
cute.
cool. Yeah. I have some video too of it at night. I didn't bring that, but it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So the fact that this is kind of before you even get into the theme park, before you get to the ticket booth and the turnstiles, is very neat, very well themed stuff. We walked around, took as much pictures as we could. Every time we came up to a cast member, we got told, the park's closed. You can't get in the park today. See, I had to go and I had to get proof. That's the sign outside the park saying it's a tropical cyclone.
Oh, that's a nice picture.
That's up to their, looking at their train station. And just to show you that it's completely and totally empty. So, our day consisted of, we did that, walked around a little bit. I know you rested for most of the day.
Rested and read. It was just it was kind of a down day, and there was not a lot else to do.
But it was nice. It kind of charged our batteries. We did lunch in the hotel. I don't have pictures of that, but we went to a place called Waltz Cafe. It was very nice. It was very well done. Adventures by Disney, the guys really worked hard to do something for us. They had the lunch for us. They did a dinner we'll talk about. They also got a conference room and they set it up. And if people wanted to go there, you could play games and just sort of socialize and
backup
hang
stuff.
out.
Yeah, it's nice.
They really did their best because there was nothing they could do at this point.
This
Nothing
was not
open.
anyone's fault. This was weather.
Right.
I have a question. In the hotel and the resorts and the parks, was there a language issue with you or did everybody speak English, or how does
Anytime I called on the phone for anything, there was no problem. The person who answered the phone would speak English. And I didn't have any trouble with any of the people that I came in contact with, especially in the hotels. I would say that wasn't true in the park. In the park, you could run into someone who spoke no English, and they would tap on a door, and I think the same woman came out every time.
They kept her everywhere.
Everywhere you went, she
She's like
popped
a
out
little
that
golf
door.
cart running.
I agree. The resort was very good. They seemed to be okay. We'll talk later again about renting a car, and the person was very responsive to that. But if you got to the park and anything was more complicated beyond, I want to purchase this or where's
Right.
this, we had difficulty with it. The other thing I wanted to point out too, and I forgot what it was. Shoot. Before we got to dinner, I wanted to say something and I forgot.
Sorry.
Think about it. I'm going to start dinner. There's a restaurant in Hong Kong Disneyland that is known as Crystal Lotus. And Crystal Lotus is one of those, here in the United States, we would call this a must-do, because they are famous for their Disney dim sum.
Oh, these are my favorite pictures, I think.
Now, this is the menu, and I wanted to show you the menu real quick because I forgot to take pictures of the food that came out because it was weird. We were so enthralled by how the food was that I kind of like totally zoned out and didn't take any pictures of it. We had something called
Maw.
maw.
Maw?
M-A-W.
Maw.
And it was a rice or noodle thing, but on top of it were these big white
Things.
puffs.
Like how big? Like a
About
fist?
2.5 inches, and
not
then they
like a
were about
fist.
as big around as a quarter.
A maw.
A maw. So I said to our guide, "What are they?" And she goes, "It's maw." Oh yeah, I got that part. Oh,
Oh, it's her now.
the hounds.
Tally ho.
The hounds.
The hounds are coming. Start the hunt.
So I said, "What is it?" "It's maw." I got that. "What's maw?" She goes,
Was it something covered?
No,
No, it
was
laid
like
on
in a
top of
sauce, and
the-
it was with the noodles.
And I said, "Well, what are they?" She said, "They're fish bladders."
Fish
Bladder.
bladders.
The thing that inside a fish allows it to sort of raise
Oh.
and lower in the water, fills with air
Oh,
inside
how
its
pleasant.
body. Yeah. So,
What they taste like? Okay, go ahead. You don't have a picture of maw?
I don't. Again, things came out, and I was so
And
like
this was all
taken
put on-
aback.
This was put on.
Did you Google it?
This was put on a giant turntable, and it was, you
Oh,
you
it
sort of
was just
spun-
maw family style.
Right.
Okay.
This is more family.
And apparently, I said I made a joke, "No more maw," and she said, "Oh, don't do that." And I said, "Why?" She goes, "That means like you're touching someone inappropriately or something like that." I'm like, "Okay." So I need to let you know what's going on here. We were supposed to have dinner the day that the park was closed because of the typhoon. The next night was going to be dinner on our own after a day in the park.
Okay.
And someone in our group had made reservations for all of us, most of us, to go to this restaurant. And one of the big things was they have Disney dim sum.
Okay.
So you had to order the Disney dim sum like very far in advance. So what happened was once the park was closed and we kind of had a down day with nothing to do,
Right.
ABD worked with the restaurant to move our dinner reservation from the next night to
Over.
lunch or to
Okay.
dinner the night before.
Makes sense.
And the restaurant was wonderful. They not only accommodated all of us, they had the dim sum ready for us.
And that's what these pictures are.
That's what these pictures are. And I mean, very creative. That you cannot, there's nothing you could say.
Look
Fantastic.
at them. Is that the bear? And
Yep. Duffy.
Duffy and
Bears.
Shelley May.
Well,
Stella
apparently we're saying Shelley May wrong. Apparently it's something else. So we're going to stop talking about it. This is Baymax.
look at that one.
There's
Though.
Olaf. And it's
The Three Little Pigs.
Oh
And
my
again, it's all dim
God.
sum with some of it has like the Three Little Pigs had pork in it appropriately.
I thought these were aliens.
oh,
Come to what?
nope.
It's Jack Skellington.
supposed to be Jack Skellington.
Oh. Do
I
you?
didn't at first. I thought it was like aliens, and I wasn't quite sure how that got to be Disney, but they were actually my favorite. They had shrimp inside them. They were delicious. The other ones, while they were absolutely adorable, there was a great deal of bread. I don't know how else to put it. That in order to make them so
The dumpling portion
the
of
dumpling
it.
portion of it, in order to make them so adorable, it was very bready.
Yeah. they had
There
to put
wasn't enough
extra.
filling.
That makes sense.
So this was a very, again, except for the fact that, The beginning part was very strange. What was the other thing? It had goose flaps. It had goose flaps.
Goose webs. I've been saying goose flaps. It was goose webs, and it's the back of a goose's leg from his butt to his foot.
Wow, that's the best part.
Yeah, really.
Did you eat all of these things?
I tasted everything.
Did you? Go back to the maw. What'd that taste like?
It had a very I guess the right term is umami, sort of very rich
Really?
flavor to it. I didn't care for it. It didn't taste good to me. It tastes almost like, have you ever had tripe? Have you ever had, it tastes a little bit like
I
tripe.
watched John try it.
Right.
Oh, I would have had to
And
try
the
it.
goose flaps were, again, not tasting
How
good.
were they prepared? Maybe they didn't do it right.
Did you
like
ever see a
steamed.
cinnamon stick in the market?
Yeah.
That's exactly what they looked like.
So the calf of somebody's leg is what it.
So there's a great deal of, people trying stuff and not eating it. So
Now,
the food was not.
This was our
Devoured.
Chinese guy, Daisy, explaining to me what this wasn't. So,
Interesting.
So again, the dim sum was a huge hit. That's the thing where everyone was looking forward to, and we enjoyed it. Again, I have to give our guides a tremendous amount of credit. They were throwing this complete loop, and they were so worried that Kevin and I were going to be mad
About what?
that this tropical cyclone, we couldn't have this first day in the park.
and we kind of explained to them, we live in Florida.
Yeah, we got this.
So we said, listen, it's okay. Do whatever you can. People enjoyed their day. They did what they could do. Some people resort hopped, and then they did breakfast, lunch, and dinner for
How
us.
many resorts do they have?
They have several.
They have you told me we
Okay.
weren't going to give a lot of details about all this. Was going to be an overview.
You get a lot of details already. We're only on day 2.
We're on day 2.
So again, but I wanted to do is I'm going to focus on the Adventures by Disney stuff as opposed to the parks. So day 3 comes around, and day 2 and 3 are kind of mixed together. We were going to have a VIP tour one day of Hong Kong Disneyland, and the next day was going to be an Imagineer was going to walk with us. They sort of put everything together in one day. So our next day was Hong Kong Disneyland with an Imagineer, and then the VIP guides in the afternoon. Let's run through some pictures. Cool seeing the dedication plaque in Chinese as well.
That is neat.
Something we learned in Shanghai was Shanghai doesn't have a dedication plaque, which I think is odd.
It is interesting.
Again, their train station, everything really done well for Halloween. They've really embraced Halloween over there. This park is really modeled after Disneyland in California. So when we get to things like the castle, there's the castle.
Oh, yeah.
The cool thing about this is, okay, so there's the Disneyland castle, and there's mountains behind it.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Now,
Looks more real.
While we were there early in the morning, an Imagineer came out to talk to us and had huge artist renderings. Hong Kong Disneyland lost visitors to Shanghai. And we thought maybe it's just because the park was new, the newer. But it was explained to us that for Chinese people to go to Hong Kong, they have to have a visa. They have to have permission to visit Hong Kong. So when Shanghai opened, they don't have to have permission
They
to go
can
to
just
Shanghai.
go, yeah.
So a lot of business was lost. So they've decided that they're going to renovate the park, rehab it. Can we
Kong-
go back to the castle for just a moment?
Rehab Hong Kong?
Hong Kong.
A lot of this park is going to be rehabbed, especially the castle is going to have a major rehab to it.
That is going to be the entrance to the castle from now on. And behind it, they are going to build a massive addition
To get the interest back and people back in the park.
to
Apparently-
modernize the park.
Yeah,
It's
apparently
not that
also,
old, is it?
No, it's not. Apparently, Hong Kong Disneyland appeals now to foreigners who can get there more easily, like Australians.
Right.
And those folks go there, not to the mainland Chinese who are now going to Shanghai. Let's go through some more of the pictures again. Got to
Mystic
see
Manor.
Mystic Manor. Oh, Mystic Manor is incredible.
Is it?
Yeah.
Look at it.
As Kevin explained in another show, the Chinese people don't have Haunted Mansion because of how they revere their dead. They don't
Oh,
haunt
okay.
you, and they're not ghosts.
They protect you.
So this is sort of their version of the Haunted Mansion, and it's based on a storyline where it's one of the explorers from the Explorers Club who
Has a
collects
pet
items.
monkey named Albert, and they find this artifact, this ark, and there's a jewel on top, but you're not supposed to touch the jewel because it will release the demons or whatever, and it's like Pandora's box. Well, Albert, the animatronic monkey,
Of course.
touches the box, and all of a sudden your little ride vehicle goes crazy, and you go careening through this
Oh,
mystic manor.
cool.
So this is an incredible ride. We love this ride. One of the things about this park is that it's not crowded at all. This reminds me of visiting Walt Disney World when I first started, like in the 80s, 90s, when the park wasn't so jam-packed. I mean, part of it was the time of year we went, but they said in general it's not very crowded. So I walked on Mystic Manor like 5 times.
Wow.
Just went on and on and on. So it was really great to...
What was the ride mechanism? Was it a dune buggy or something similar?
Yeah, very similar to
Very
a dune
similar.
buggy.
Think of looking more like the cars from Toy Story Mania, but not on a track. It was a trackless system. So the cars sort of went independently, but you sat 2 in front, 2 in back. And
Right.
Like Mr. Toad.
yeah, a little bit
Okay.
like Mr. Toad. Really great. It was a great, great ride. And again, when we cover this park, I've got some video from the ride that I'll put together to sort of make it a little bit more cohesive so you can see it. Very cool exterior. This exterior is... What are you doing?
Nothing.
Oh my gosh. Things are... Did you touch the diamond, Albert? Did you touch the jewel?
Things are happening here.
So again, let's take a look at the of the exterior to the Mystic Manor. Again, beautiful, very cool. What else have we got
Palm
as far as
trees.
pictures? That's it. That's it for So that's it for Hong Kong.
Oh, we're done?
Disneyland. Again, great park. Lots of stuff to do. Cool rides. Cool things. Going back and thinking about it, this is the park with Iron Man. I rode Iron Man. I didn't think I was going to do it because it's a lot like Star Tours. I'm sorry, I'm distracted because there's a lot going on here at the table. It's a lot like Star Tours, and I thought, I can't ride Star Tours. It hurts my back. It makes me dizzy. Incredible ride mechanism. Very well done. So a lot of cool stuff in this park. And again, because the crowds are low and the park is relatively small, it's very easy to do. It's a very easy park to do.
They just have one park, right? It's not like...
Correct.
Okay.
They just have the Hong Kong Disneyland Park. What's next on our little thing here? Show me before we move on. Okay, so that's the end of our first day in Hong Kong Disneyland. And again, this was a 2 days mashed together, but we're back on track. And our next day is day 4, and this is our Hong Kong City Tour. So we start early. We do breakfast in the hotel, same place we did the other day. We're doing good. We get in the bus and we go to Stanley Market. And Stanley Market is all about shopping and sort of bargain hunting and getting your souvenirs. It was a great deal of fun. You can imagine anything and everything is there to purchase, including knockoff bags
Really?
and, fake jade and things like that.
You felt safe?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely safe. Yeah, it wasn't really like,
People dragging you down?
no.
No,
Alleys
it was
and
very
stuff.
open. It was very crowded. And,
Okay.
But everybody, strangers would tell you this is fake stuff. So we bought refrigerator magnets and we bought,
Like I say, bought a refrigerator.
Yeah,
and
we
ship
have a
back.
refrigerator.
we didn't buy stuff that it mattered whether it was
Right.
real or not. I was offered an Hermes bag, which is usually about $3,800, $3,900 here in the United
Yeah.
States. They were $25 and I could buy one, get one free.
Whoa.
So it was
The deal.
It was all open air. I would describe it as a flea market and almost anywhere.
But it was fun.
It was very much fun.
We had a lot of
The
fun
other
that day.
thing is, it's a thing in... The way I would describe it is you could walk through some place that sold framed artwork, like the place in the mall that sells framed artwork, and people would buy Chinese characters based on how they look, the aesthetic. Not necessarily what they mean, but how the characters look. Does that make sense to you?
No, not at all.
No, I don't understand that.
If you walk through, you can see framed Chinese words. And people, you're looking at me like you don't understand the words I'm using. Do
believe
you
you-
understand the word framed?
Like
Yes.
calligraphy style?
yeah, but they're Chinese characters.
So more
Chinese-
artwork than the actual meaning behind the
right.
Chinese words.
And they sell them based on aesthetics. You can do that here in the United States. We did it. They had them in China too. However, the words, they'll tell you it's happiness or luck or whatever.
Right.
Apparently that's popular in China, but they buy Americanized words as for the aesthetic value. However, they're what we would describe as really nasty curse words.
I get where you're going.
Oh, okay. I'm getting it now.
It is not unusual to see a child in China.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you the one we saw.
You can
One
use a
little
bad
girl.
word.
No, I'm not going to use the bad word. One little girl was walking around with a shirt on that said, I wish I was a bird so I could decide who to blank on.
Poop on. But not
And
the
it
word
wasn't
poop.
that word.
Okay.
And she was 3.
Yeah.
John bought a magnet,
Oh, what nasty magnet did
and
you
it's
buy?
just a word. And it's the first part is a certain part of your body, and the second word is whole.
It was
And
a-hole
it's a-
spelled out.
Oh, it's got your name on there.
And it's in Chinese
appropriate.
and English. So it
appropriate.
was very popular to see T-shirts for sale with words that you wouldn't use in front of your children.
But you don't. But it's in Chinese.
Both.
Chinese and English.
Oh,
so I would
okay.
ask them, do the people who are buying these know what it means? And they said no.
And then what they would say is like, okay, so that shirt the little girl was wearing, when they interpret it back, it probably meant I soar above you and I'm,
Right, it
So
has
it says
different
something a little bit
meaning.
more beautiful than that. But she said they wouldn't know exactly what that meant.
Oh my.
Yeah,
So it was not
weird.
uncommon to see children walking around the park with really vulgar curse words, like young children, on their clothes.
Wow.
After Stanley Market, we went to a lookout so we can get a view of, it actually is Hong Kong Harbor, and beautiful, beautiful view, beautiful scenery, cool place to go.
Terrifying bus ride to get up there.
I believe we've got a video of a little bit of a pan of what I did for
Oh wow.
the actual view. So
It doesn't even look real. It's
no,
so
it's
pretty.
really, really, really pretty. And incredible how, I should have taken the audio out before I gave it to you, but that's all right.
Look at that.
Yeah, it's incredible how it's built up. I'm not going to get into it because I'm going to get the socio-political aspect of it wrong, but it was explained to us Hong Kong is really the perfect capitalist society because of how it's now structured. It's not part of China yet. It won't be part of China for 50 years. It was released from the British. And because of this, their growth is incredible. And their real estate has grown incredibly. It's not unusual to have multi-million-dollar apartments in Hong Kong.
And buildings 100 stories tall.
Isn't that crazy?
I think I just read, and if you look at it, the most recent Town and Country, one of the most wealthy people in the world now is that person they talked about in Hong Kong who owns apartment buildings, and he's worth billions of dollars.
That's wild.
So after experiencing the lookout and seeing the beautiful, beautiful vista, we had lunch up there at the top of this lookout. I forget what this restaurant was. Was nice enough. The food was nice enough. Wasn't anything special or memorable. I think it was more about the fact of where we were. That was cool. I think it was very Americanized, as a matter of fact.
Oh,
yeah,
that
we
looks,
had.
yeah.
My lunch here was a cheeseburger.
Yeah, I think you had a cheeseburger and stuff, and somebody had I don't even know what this is. So it wasn't like it was.
Oh,
like,
this was a
ooh.
curry, I think.
Yep. So it wasn't like, oh, this is incredible food. It was more like, we were here. Let's have lunch
The
here.
location was the thing.
Then we rode Funicular.
Before we go on to that, the other thing was in Japan, it had been 95 degrees. At the top of this lookout, it was like 65. So it was lovely. The
Yeah.
temperature was lovely.
A funicular. Ooh, those always scare me.
Yeah, and this one was scary. This one was a pretty big incline, and we only went back.
Oh.
And we had to sit backwards. It was such
Oh,
an
no,
incline.
no.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Was that the only option?
Our guides, it was so steep coming down, but it's been working. What did they say? 120
Yeah, it's
years.
ridiculous
It's been
amount
there
of time.
forever. It was so steep that one of our Chinese guide, Daisy, she did what she called funicular surfing, and while everyone else was standing, she stood in the middle of the aisle, and you couldn't stand upright because it was so steep.
Right.
So her feet were on the floor, and she was tilted back at like 45 degrees. So,
What kept her from sliding out of that thing?
well,
The gravity
the
and
gravity. So then there were other people
force.
in our group who got up and did it. And it was because of the steepness and how fast you were moving, it looked like they were almost laying down. It was
Oh my
kind of cool to
God.
watch. But then if you looked outside, because you were going down so steep, it was very hard to get an orientation on the buildings
Yeah.
because if you took a picture, none of it made sense.
oh, Lord, no.
You asked if there was another option. We got up there by bus. And we got up there by bus on windy road with no guardrail. Our bus actually grazed another bus. That's how tight these roads were. And as I said, it's not an Adventures by Disney if there's not a harrowing bus ride
Right.
involved.
And I've been on cruise ships and I don't get seasick. I don't get motion sick. I don't have to sit in the front seat. This bus ride made me nauseous.
Yeah.
It was stop and go and treacherous. And you would look over and you would be up, I don't know how many hundreds of feet.
Oh, my gosh.
So after that, we did a little bit of a bus tour of Hong Kong. Some of our group took a ferry ride. At that point, we decided not to do that. It was going to be a lot of steps. It's going to be a lot of walking. So we just decided we would stay on the bus. Here's a shot. This is if you ever see anything that talks about Hong Kong, this is the famous skyline of Hong Kong. So we really enjoyed that. And that was one of those things where we almost thought about not doing, because we kind of was like, it was kind of like, we were worried about the amount of walking involved and sort of holding other people up because we were walking very slow for stuff. And they were telling us, you're going to walk far to this place and far to that place. So we, very, very glad we did it. It was incredible. That night, had some extra time. I ran into the park. Kevin stayed back in the room, but I decided to go and see the park at
I
night.
packed.
It was great. Saw the fireworks, saw the parade, the nighttime parade or the Villains Parade. Again, when we talk about that park, I'll go into much more detail with that. Up next day is our transition to Beijing.
This was our first internal flight. That's part of the adventure. We had flown from Japan, but this was ABD's flight. We flew from Hong Kong to Beijing.
Did we do anything that morning?
Breakfast.
We had breakfast that morning, and then we got our flights over to Beijing. Want to talk about, so our first experience with our first internal flight, we arrive in Beijing, and the plane passes by all the nice jetways along the way and parks at the furthest end of the runway as it could and stops, and they pull up the stairs like you're the president getting off the plane.
Oh, external.
However,
Okay.
they called it fog. Eventually, they used the right phrase, and it was smog. Beijing, by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, is pretty much dark. The smog is so bad.
Wow.
So we got off the plane.
In heavy smog,
It was very
getting
Casablanca.
dark. Yeah. And it was like all of a sudden you're faced with stairs. So we did our best. We got off.
Oh,
but it was
gosh.
like, what are you doing to me? Get on the bus. Again, it's now almost pitch black at like 5:30 at night. Our first thing in Beijing that we do is we go to Duck Du Chin's for dinner. We all thought they were saying Dr. Chin's.
Duck to Sheen.
Dr. Sheen.
So we were saying, what is going on? This place is famous for their Peking duck. I am not a fan of Peking duck, so it did not impress me, but it was a nice dinner. We had a nice dinner. And again, it's family style for the most part. They give you a great deal of things in the beginning. There's rice and there's vegetables and things to start out your meal on one of those big lazy Susans. And then, of course, it's the guy comes out and carves the Peking duck, and they have really cute Peking duck plates that they put it
look at
on.
that.
And then you go and see where the Peking duck is slaughtered. And that's not really
always
slaughtered.
nice.
And then there's the oven where you cook the Peking duck. So it's a whole Peking duck thing,
Right.
as you do in China. And then,
So I asked to use the restroom in this restaurant.
man,
And it is
Okay.
down a very, very steep flight of stairs. I am not adept at stairs. I'm just not. So I said, you don't have one that's available? Oh, yes, we have a handicapped accessible restroom.
Okay.
Okay, great. Where's
Yeah,
that?
I'll do it.
You had to go through the restaurant, and you had to go down 4 stairs through a courtyard, past where they store the garbage cans. Then you had to go up 3 stairs. You went through another restaurant and went down 4 more stairs. and went into a third restaurant.
Oh, you are making this up?
No,
Seriously?
I went with him because I had to use my iPhone to light the way. Because it was
That was
dark.
the handicap
That was
accessible?
the accessible one. So I finally made it back to the table, and Valerie says to me, "How far is the handicapped accessible?" And I said, "You're not going to believe me." So she comes back and she goes, "I should have just used the stairs."
Right?
Stairs.
So when I talked earlier about this, a lot of this trip, if you have mobility issues, a lot of this trip is hard. Now, you walked from where the bus dropped you off, you went down some narrow side streets, but in some of them, the sidewalk was only 1 or 2 feet wide because of other things on the sidewalk. This whole thing is not really measured for anybody with a mobility issue.
It would have been very difficult for anyone in a wheelchair to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was tough for Kevin as it was, but we muscled through as much as we could. On to our hotel. We stayed at the Rosewood in Beijing. I do not know what possessed me where I have no pictures of this hotel. However, it was one of the most gorgeous places I've ever stayed in my life.
We'll never know.
Probably
never
the
know. You'll
nicest
never see.
hotel I've ever stayed in.
And I'll never know. I'll have to Google it.
We had almost an apartment. I mean, we had a dining table and we had a
Oh,
living
wait.
room.
I think someone you traveled with put it on Facebook.
I'm sure a bunch of people did, yeah.
Because I
Smarter
kept
than
saying,
me.
that's got to be more than one room. And it was
No,
huge. It was huge. Yeah.
huge.
It was huge. We had huge picture windows overlooking
The smog.
a tenement in smog. We had a beautiful apartment with virtually no view at all. We looked at an apartment building across the way. However, it was the nicest room I've ever stayed in, and I've been lucky enough to stay in some nice places.
Wow.
However, they're not going to use this hotel anymore. They're going to now move back. The Peninsula Hotel in Beijing was under renovation. Apparently, the thing is now for larger rooms in China, and the Beijing had older small room. Or, I'm sorry, the Peninsula had older small rooms. So what they've done is they've remodeled it and put 2 rooms together to make larger rooms.
So the
for
rooms
people.
are really large.
Yeah, that's
But the
our-
people that live in China live in tiny little.
Yeah, pretty much. Our room in the Rosewood was the result of them remodeling and putting 2 rooms together, and you could see that. The only sort of weird idiosyncrasy of the room was, I guess, to take advantage of the view. Behind the bed are 2 windows that look into the bathroom. One is directly in the shower. So
So you
there's
can shower and look out through the bedroom.
At the tenement across the street.
That's
And at first,
High
you
class.
think, I mean, we're talking probably a 2-foot window, like from your waist to the ceiling. So we got playing with the buttons, and there are shades on the window. So if you don't want to, have the public shower, and the other one on the other side sort of looks into where the commode is.
wow.
But again, beautiful hotel. We love this hotel. It was fantastic.
It's the nicest room I've ever stayed in, and that's saying a lot.
The next day, breakfast in the hotel. Again, Adventures by Disney provided breakfast every day. This place was called Bistro B. We love this place. We had many meals in this place. The food was really
Surprisingly,
good.
it was a French cafe.
Interesting.
So tons of choices. Again, you could have omelets made to order. There was a charcuterie area. Just really, really fantastic and was wonderful.
What was that hanging there?
Meats, various meats and things.
Person hanging there.
No, it's not a person. Trust me. This was their pancake station and their
Oh,
waffle
wow,
station.
that's
So,
pretty.
so very, very nice. Really, what happened was we sort of got to this hotel, and I think they do this section to kind of Americanize it, quote unquote, for ABD travelers, because again, it was a very, very easy breakfast to manipulate, and the hotel was very, very well done. We loved it. This day was going to be a walking tour of Beijing. The group was going to Tiananmen Square and the Temple of Heaven. We opted not to do it.
And the Forbidden Palace.
The Forbidden Palace. We were told in advance how much walking there was going to be, how many steps there were going to be. So we decided not to participate.
And we had a couple
You,
of people.
meaning the 2 of you, not the whole group.
Well, no, other people too, but
Okay.
There were several. There was a couple of
there was
us. who
4 of us
decided-
total who decided
Four
to
who
do it.
with a little bit of mobility issue.
Right.
So what we did was we hired a car and a driver, and that included a tour guide. So
American speaking tour guide.
he's was perfectly bilingual. And we got to drive alongside of Tiananmen Square, so we got to see
Okay.
everything they did without the walking. Now, we drove by and around the Forbidden Palace, and we drove by the Temple of Heaven, but we couldn't go in. So he did some other things for us. We were there during the Communist Party, the annual Communist Party meeting, where the leader of China was reinstated. So there was a great deal of security around. But we drove out and saw where the Olympics were. We saw the bird's nest and the
Oh,
blue
wow.
cube and had a great time.
Some pictures. Let's sort of flip through these again. In general, things you saw in Beijing, you can see the sky again, very, very smoggy, not very pretty sky, but the architecture is beautiful. There's a lot of stuff sort of installed art along the walkway, along the roads. This stuff fascinated me. I didn't know what it was, but I took pictures of it. A lot of these things are just, made it very interesting and very cool to see. This building is called The Pants. Can you see the pants?
And it's China cable television, like CCT, I think they call it.
Yeah. But again, you can see how much is going
That's part of the Forbidden City.
along how much is being built up. That's the bird's nest.
However, you can see that they kept calling it fog. The fog never went away.
This was a day that, in addition to going to these things, we asked our driver to take us someplace to do some Jade shopping. So he took us someplace that was called the Pearl Market. It was kind of like an indoor swap meet where people were selling everything from toys to luggage. But we went to a specific jewelry store. We had a great time. We bought quite a few pieces.
And our guide told us that people in China expect you to negotiate or haggle. So he said to Valerie and Mickey, who was with us, let's have a code. If you're negotiating and I think you've got the right price, I will say, that's good.
Okay.
If I think you can do better, I will say, that's nice.
Okay.
So they both went, okay. So the first person said to Mickey, this is so many dollars. And Mickey's like, okay, is the box extra? Then they got to Val, and she negotiated back and forth a while. And she said to Michael, what do you think? And he said, that's nice. Valerie says, okay, I'll take it. And he said, no.
That's the right code.
So now John was negotiating for me. I bought this little ring. And he said to Michael, I don't need your help negotiating. So apparently Michael, the tour guide, has been to this store before, because he comes over and he says to me, as we were getting ready to leave, he said, the ladies called me in the back and she said, the big guy doesn't need any help. So we laughed.
I enjoyed it. Enjoyed negotiating with them. I want to point out, too, the car was arranged by our guides. We paid for it. It was extra, but they did a really great job. Really nice. Helped us
But I got the feeling, I felt like we saw Beijing.
I absolutely feel like we saw Beijing. We saw a lot of it. And again, they helped to get the car, but they also got this tour guide who they know personally. So it really was a special experience.
That's nice.
All right. So moving on to the next day. The next day is the Great Wall of China. This is sort of the one China thing I wanted to do and see.
Right.
So I was glad that we had it in our itinerary and we were going to do it. Kevin decided he wasn't going to do it. At this point, the guides in our trip were very, very honest with Kevin and said, listen, here's the deal. It's a huge amount of walking. It's strenuous walking. It's not easy. You're going to have a hard time doing it. So actually, Kevin and Val both decided that they weren't going to do it. And rightfully so. Mm-hmm. It was arduous to get to the Great Wall of China. You start out in this sort of area where there's shopping. You walk through a little shopping area. And again, it's all about knick-knacky things and you negotiate and it's part of the fun. At the end of this, you take a bus to the bottom of the hill.
Great Wall footpath.
You get to the bottom of the hill and then there is what I would say, I don't know what this would be considered, an incline of about that steep. Waiting for the camera to get to me. Waiting for the camera so I can get my visual. An incline of about this steep. I had to stop like 4 or 5 times.
Was
And
it
not-
steps or was it a path?
This was just a road, sort of uneven cobblestone road, but on the side they did put steps for people who couldn't manipulate that. And I wasn't the only one. There were people who were stopping and huffing and puffing.
So it wasn't like loose gravel.
No, it wasn't loose gravel.
Okay.
It was cobblestones and it was steps on the side. And then at the top of this is a cable car. So this is the top of where you get to the cable car. So you're not even there yet. You're nowhere near the Great Wall. So you get in the cable car. I thought do I have the video of the cable car? If not, it's not a big deal. I put it on YouTube. And of course, you get to the cable car and you think, I can't go in that. I'm going to fall to my death. But you sort of say, I've come this far and I have to, and I have to get on that, and I've got to ride that cable car. Nope, but that's okay, Craig. It doesn't have to show it. All it was a little video of the cable car coming around and opening up for you. So then you get off the cable car and you're at the top. I apologize for turning around. So that's inside the cable car, and you're off the top of the cable car, and this is the Great Wall from the cable car. Then there's more walking. You're walking up more steps.
These are the stairs.
These are the stairs to the Great Wall of China. So I am pretty much done. I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do anymore. Think about, can you see how far that lady has to step up?
Yeah.
Almost like stepping onto a low chair. They're uneven. They're broken
They're
up.
broken.
They're a little bit slanty. And this is how you get onto the Great Wall of China. So you muscle up the strength to do this last part.
If you're that close, you got to
do it. And you get on it. And it is spectacular to think about where you are and where you're standing and the history of it all.
Look at that.
And how far it is. You can see that white line goes all the way up into the mountains.
Isn't that crazy?
We walked it a little bit. To my surprise, it wasn't all smooth and flat. I thought it was going to be like a smooth surface. There were steps. So at some point, there might have been little slate steps going down. Other parts, there might have been taller steps up and down. But super, super happy I did it. It was a great experience. They do a little cute thing where they have people dressed as invaders coming to you, and they're going to, and you take a picture with them and you do a little photo op with them. So they're and they give you their pin. So they try to make it a little bit more Disney-ish, but it doesn't need it. This is the Great Wall of China.
Wow.
You don't need to do that.
How long was the whole process for the time you started walking and got on the cable and finally got
They
there?
left right after breakfast.
We did.
And John texted me at lunchtime, and
was
I'm going to guess
lunchtime,
it was
yeah.
1 o'clock. And he said to me, "What are you doing?" Because I'm sure they all thought Valerie and I were sitting home pining and crying.
We
Yeah.
did.
And Valerie and I had gone to that French bistro, and we had a 2.5-hour lunch.
Okay.
So I said, "We're having lunch. What are you doing?" He said, "I'm having random bitter greens for lunch."
Yeah. So after the Great Wall, we did go to lunch at a local restaurant, which was not a big deal. And it was one of those things where I think we were so tired, but also so sort of overwhelmed by what we got to see and do.
Yeah.
They could have fed us anything. We didn't care. It was
At
fine.
that point, it's the location.
Right. It's the location. We head back. It's like an hour and a half ride out. It's like a 2-hour ride back because of traffic. Again, worth every minute of the experience to get a chance to do that. I forget what we did I think we went to that Bistro B for dinner that night.
The food was really
Food
good.
was
Must
really
have been good, yeah.
And then the next day we head out to Shanghai. Now, what happens is I know we're going really late, but I think we can finish up in about 20 minutes. Craig, are you okay with that?
20 minutes.
That didn't sound convincing, did it?
Okay, I have to leave in about 15. Can you?
Do you? All right,
Yeah.
we'll try to wrap it up in 15. Because again, the last part is Shanghai Disneyland. We're going to do a whole separate show on Shanghai Disneyland.
Okay.
The folks on our trip did what they call the pedicab ride to the Hutong. Quick explanation is that this is sort of Chinese people retire early. So the older Chinese people wanted something to do. And in this area, they took their homes and they made their homes into businesses where people were invited in to sort of see what they do and what they make. And
It's very artsy craftsy.
Very artsy craftsy. We didn't do that. Again, it was going to be walking and getting into this pedicab, but people had a good time. Transition to Shanghai. Again, you get to the airport and you got to walk upstairs to the plane. You get to Shanghai, you got to walk downstairs from the plane. Again, makes it arduous, makes it uncomfortable, but we kind of got through it. Get to Shanghai Disneyland, get to the Shanghai Disneyland Resort, and then it's like no place I've ever seen in my life. It is the most beautiful Disney hotel. We had a debate. Is it more beautiful than Alani? Alani wins because of location. This hotel is gorgeous. Can you run through some of the pictures?
You took pictures?
We did. I actually took pictures of this hotel. I know. I wasn't good about the other place. Kind of dark to see, but this is a statue in the lobby. The lobby is
look
like
at
a
that.
cruise ship. It reminds
Everything
me of
Yeah.
was very, very grand.
very grand and very beautiful.
It does look like cruise shipy, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, our mouths dropped
Oh, look at that.
at this hotel. It was just incredible. The back of the hotel faces this little lake. Across from the lake is Shanghai Disneyland. This is their castle from the back of their hotel.
It's enormous.
It's
It's
incredible.
huge.
It's just incredible. You can watch the nighttime projection show and the fireworks actually from this hotel. That's how close it is. Just couldn't say enough great things about this hotel. Absolutely fantastic. The rooms were beautiful. As far as the rooms go in our experiences, I think this was the least room, the room we liked the least, but it was still very well done. Every day is breakfast in the hotel, downstairs in Lumiere's. Very nice. You can flip through some of these, based on Lumiere, based on Beauty and the Beast. Well done, well themed. So great breakfast. A lot of choices, a lot of good stuff to have. There's a character breakfast, so the characters come out and do their thing, and you dance with them and sing with them. Really great experience.
Shanghai style wonton soup. Ooh.
Mickey-shaped things. It's always good when you have Mickey-shaped things.
Oh, look at them.
Yeah.
Like little quiches.
Yep.
Oh, they're pretty.
Yep. So again, work really great. Was nice. Again, as you sort of get into that, you can find things to eat. Life is better and life gets good. So, trying to figure out where we stand. Oh, so I got to go back a second. This was breakfast the next day. The night before, because we got in so late, we did a pre-order of dinner in our rooms. They delivered dinner to the room.
That was
weird.
nice.
Yeah, it was nice. It was okay. It's a very strange situation because they're so used to the flights getting in so late. This is what they do. So we didn't have time to go into the parks that day, but it was still nice. So the next day is our Shanghai Disneyland day. We have VIP tour guides for that day, so we get to go into the park. And again, incredible park. And one of the things that's nice about this park, we talked about Hong Kong was based on Walt Disney World. Tokyo was
Disneyland.
based on Walt Disney World. Hong Kong is based on Disneyland. Shanghai feels like they told the Imagineers, don't base it on anything.
Look at that castle.
Do what you want to do. Again, just incredible. It looks like someone could actually live in this castle.
It's beautiful.
The other interesting thing is, again, it's not really it's sort of the park is sort of a hub and spoke design, but it's not strictly that. And it's just unbelievable. The guides were great. We had a lot of them. We had like 6 of them.
Wow.
So one of the things that was nice about that, the ABD arranged this for us. The nice thing about that was we were able to say, listen, there's a group of us who aren't fast and aren't interested in going on every single ride. Mm-hmm. So is it right if we go a little bit slower? So our guide took us a little bit slower, and we did a few of the rides, and we got a chance to see the park. One of the things we got a chance to see was Pirates. You might have saw my tweets about Pirates of the Caribbean. Unbelievable. Incredible attraction. In my opinion, the best theme park ride out there.
Wow.
I'm not alone in saying that.
That picture's the best picture out there.
This is the can you find me on the ride? Where's John?
That's awesome.
What happened was we went on the ride with the VIP tour guide. We tried to get Kevin on the ride. We came out. We said, you got to ride it. You got to ride it. It's incredible. We get through the queue. We get him in the boat, which is not easy because it's, how the seats are really small,
Yeah.
really tight. And what happens as we start to pull out?
The first boat goes whoosh over the edge. The second boat goes whoosh over the edge.
Yeah.
And then it's our turn, and we go, conk. So the boat stops. Well, all of a sudden, two people run over and look at us. And we're just sitting there.
Yeah.
And then they ran into a little office that we could see. Well, all of a sudden, 3 more people came, and 5 more people came, and 8 more people came. So now there's like 35 people in this little office. Now all 35 of them come out and just look at us. Then they have flashlights and they're looking at us. They all ran back into the office, and now 10 of them came out with huge things of rope.
Like, picture the rope you would tie up the Disney Magic with.
So now they're
Giant.
now they're tying our
Rope
boat
tie.
up. And I thought, what are we doing?
Who all was in the boat? Like the
Was our little group
Yeah.
without the tour guide. But it was also other people. There were
Okay.
I'm
other.
going to guess there's 50 people in the boat.
These
Okay.
boats are big. I don't know that.
I don't know how many, 10 people, 15 people. I'm kidding. However many people were in the boat with John. So now they tie the boat up, and I think, well, but the boat's not moving. Well, they said, well, when you're getting out, the boat could jerk and all of a sudden depart.
Oh, so they had to secure it so
they
you could get
secured
out.
the boat. So now there are a bunch of Chinese people standing around trying to grab people out of the boat. I think before the boat took off.
It's like an elevator waiting to plummet.
Right. So this lady, this very nice lady, she probably weighed 85 pounds. Hold out your hand. She grabs me by the wrist. Now I'm 6'5".
Yeah.
And I'm on that little bench, and I've got the little bar over me. And
So
that's
she's
not
grabbed
really
your
where-
wrist.
She grabs my wrist and she goes like this. Come on, I'll help you. And I thought,
I'll pull you in, lady.
all I have to do is raise my arm, and you're
Right.
going the other side of the boat. So John finally helped me out, and I thought, oh my God. So we get outside, and we're sitting there waiting, and they said, okay, it's fixed. Let's go back in.
No. So Kevin never wrote it. So after our VIP tour guide experience, I had a chance later to go into the park, and I rode Pirates, like, it just kept going back on single rider. It was great. Just kept
my
going, just kept going. So that picture is from one of my rides with
That's
the
hilarious.
single rider and this all Chinese people.
All I kept thinking is, our boat broke at the dock,
Yeah.
and there was all those people with rope. Can you picture if that ride broke and I was out in the middle of the water?
Yeah.
So
Crazy.
a great day with the tour guides. They were fantastic with us. We had a great deal of fun. The next day is our day in Shanghai. So we did a Shanghai city tour. Again, debated whether or not to do it. There was going to be a lot of walking. Are you going to be able to do the walking? How are you going to get around? So happy we did it. This was the most, in my opinion, Chinese experience we had. This felt like I
Real.
expected China to be.
Right.
A little bit of shopping, a little bit of eating.
We went into what they called the Old Town.
Right.
It was lovely.
So you can see great, really cool architecture, really cool statues and stuff. Okay, so now we go Jade Shopping. And they take us to this little place where they go, but we got there early because the group was doing a walking tour. So as we're sitting, we purchased some jade and quite a bit of jade, and everyone in our group had bought some stuff. And we're sitting there and we're just sort of relaxing and hanging out. And I noticed that over on the wall, there's a bookshelf. And in the bookshelf, there is a white bowl with water in it, and there's little ceramic babies floating in the water.
Baby what?
Big, like ceramic
Little brown
carved
ceramic children.
Chinese babies.
So he says to me, what's the story with the bowl of floating babies? And I thought, when somebody says something and you think, did I really hear what he just said?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. So I said, what? So he comes over and he lays the bowl in front of me.
You
and
picked the bowl up?
I did. I was fascinated by the floating babies.
It's a salad bowl with water in it. And little
Do I have a video for this, Greg? Yeah, so let's cue that up. It's a quick
and
video.
little terracotta colored ceramic babies. So we picked one up, and you find out the little babies are naked and anatomically correct.
What are you doing?
So I said to John, I don't know what these are. And the man who ran this little tea ceremony, there are the little babies. They soak in water, and he put them up on these sort of coffee cups,
And he poured hot water over
and he
them.
went and he got boiling water, and he came back and poured the boiling water over the
Play it
little
again, Craig.
terracotta
Do it
babies.
again, Sam.
And
They pee-peed.
TPP.
Why?
So
What's the point
you can't
of this?
you can't hear it. I don't believe you might be able to hear it on the show.
Look how
but
hard they're peeing.
at the end, Kevin goes, "We'll take two."
I said to him, we're going to take two of these.
And because we had spent so much, they actually gave them to us.
They gave one to me, one to John, and one to
So,
Jeff.
This is our best purchase of the trip. We're so
What's
happy. Apparently, it has to do with testing the boiling water to make tea. The ceramic absorbs the cold water as it lays in there, and then when you pour the hot water over, it expels the cold water, and that lets them know that the water's hot enough to make tea.
When the
But it's
baby
more of a
pee-pees.
novel, right? It's
I
a
think
more
sticking
novel.
your finger in it is just as easy. However, how could you not buy them after he did this for
Right,
you?
but it's a novelty.
Wow.
Yeah, so we got done with that. Then there's a little bit more tour of Beijing. A lovely day. We finish up
Shanghai. We went to see
Shanghai.
the Bund.
Shoot, more tour of Shanghai.
The Bund is where you're in the older part of Shanghai, which looks very European. You could be in Paris. It looks like that. But across the way is this very modern skyline. It's the picture you always see of Shanghai. And there are restaurants and hotels there and shopping. It was a beautiful area.
That night we went for dumplings at apparently what's a famous dumpling place. The best meal we had. These dumplings were incredible.
They were what you call soup dumplings. So they had,
There they are making them fresh in the kitchen.
and every time somebody would go to take their picture, they would all stop and give you the Fonzie sign. But the dumplings had liquid in them. So there was a whole little tutorial that don't just stick the dumpling in your mouth because you'll scald yourself.
Yeah.
So you sort of poked a hole in the dumpling and ate it, and then you had soup in your bowl. They were delicious.
They were delicious. This is the best meal we had the entire trip. The next day, the group did a tour of Shanghai Disneyland with an Imagineer. We opted not to do it because it was going to be like a 6-hour tour. It was going to be this huge long tour that they were going to do, and we thought we just can't keep up with them. So we walked through their what they call Disney Town, their downtown Disney shops. Nothing spectacular. There's a Sephora. There's a Pandora.
There's an Uggs.
Yeah, so it was
Basic,
cute enough. It's right attached right to the park, so it's
However,
very
there is a
convenient.
full-size Broadway theater showing The Lion King every night.
Yeah,
The Broadway version of The Lion
that's what
King.
that theater was back there. So very neat, very cool. Glad I got a chance to see it. It was nothing spectacular. Apparently, they got the world's biggest Lego store. I don't believe
Okay.
it, but whatever. I think ours is bigger.
Can you see this picture? Is everybody seeing this picture? I bet you're wondering who this is. This is a random man who came over and sat down next to John and took a selfie without asking, without speaking, just sat down and took a selfie. So John touched his arm and told him to come back, and John took a selfie, and he was angry.
He was not happy that I made him take a selfie. Again, this is one of those weird things that happened throughout China. Was that the Chinese people were fascinated with us and took pictures with us and with our
Really?
group.
One
Yeah.
of the things.
What's so fascinating about you?
Well, there was
I
a
think-
gentleman in our group who was, he's a little bit taller than I am, and he has much lighter colored hair. And while they were walking through Tiananmen Square, women would come up and touch him and tell him how beautiful he was. And over again, and they would take pictures with us. When we took pictures as a group, as we would look around, there was always other people in the picture with us. They just wanted to be in the picture
with
with us.
Americans. Apparently, they don't sell Americans. So we've
The
finished.
other thing, I apologize. The other compliment was, "Oh, you have a really fat nose."
Yeah,
That was a big thing. Oh,
So that's you a lot, John.
not
Your
me.
nose.
but a bunch of people got, "Oh, you have a really fat nose." And what
Is
was
that
it?
a good thing?
Yes.
Yes, because Chinese noses tend to be a little bit flat. When ours stick out, they love that. They think that's a sign of
Interesting.
beauty. There were several people who had their picture taken because of their noses. I had my picture taken a lot because I'm 6'5".
Yeah.
We finish up at Disney Town. Kevin headed back to the room. I did another run through of the park. I love this park. I wanted to see as much as I could. Took pictures, got a little bit of the parade. We'll show that when we do a show of Shanghai Disneyland. And then that night was our farewell dinner, and we got a chance to go to Club 33 in Shanghai. Pretty awesome, pretty special. Unlike any other Club 33, it didn't really have sort of the history behind it. It was a very modern space.
I would describe it as a very 1960s swanky restaurant. That's how it was designed.
Okay.
Like you would not be surprised to see Doris Day having dinner here,
Right.
you know?
The food was good. It was, again, it was secondary to the fact that it was our farewell dinner, and it was more about being with folks and saying goodbye and reminiscing about the trip. And they did the typical, here's the video of the pictures we took and all that stuff. It was great. The highlight of this was the fact that there is a balcony off of Club 33 with a direct view of the castle, and we watched the show and the fireworks the last night. Again, when we do the whole show on Shanghai, I've got video of that I'll put together, but this was a spectacular ending to a really incredible trip. Unfortunately, the next day we leave, depart the next day, and in typical Adventures by Disney fashion, they took really good care of us, made sure we got on our way and got home and everyone was safe. But again, we had such a great time. It was such a great trip, very far. Parts of this trip was very taxing, and as Kevin said, not handicapped accessible. I would do is, if you're interested in the China trip in general, contact Kevin at Dreams Unlimited Travel, and let him give you advice on, what you might and might not be able to do physically for a very challenging trip. And again, ours was less than the regular trip. The regular trip is even more taxing than ours. So that's it. Again, we did a longer show than we wanted to. I apologize, but I hope you guys got a lot out of it. We're going to be doing 2 more shows, one on the Hong Kong Disneyland Park, one on Shanghai Disneyland specifically, so we can get in depth into those parks. But I want to thank everybody here for participating. Thank you for being here. I want to thank everybody at home for listening and watching. We hope you have a great week, and we hope you have a great vacation.